Welcome to This Week in Washington for Friday, April the 6th, 2012. This has been a much quieter week in Washington than the last several ones because, as you know, Congress finished their business at the end of last week and went on recess. If you follow the updates that we've been putting out on both Fastmail and on our website, you know that Congress adjourned without passing any of the reauthorization bills that were discussed in our previous month or so. And instead, the House of Representatives passed a 90-day continuation for transit and highways by yet another extension of Safety Lou. You may recall that earlier last year, I said that I thought that this would be an extremely short congressional year and it would be hard for Congress to get anything done. I think clearly we see in the last several weeks that's exactly what has happened. And it does appear to many of us, if you're much of a football fan, that we seem to be engaged in a process of running out the clock as far as Congress is concerned between now and the election. The Senate bill that had many good things in it was really set up to be a 16-month bill. If you look at this 90-day extension and you subtract it from that 16 months, you'll recognize that if we did come back and pass the Senate bill, it would last for 13 months. And then the reauthorization struggle would begin all over again. I doubt Congress is going to want to do that, considering the time that's left to them. Among the other things Congress did before it left town last week was to enact, at least in the House of Representatives, the budget resolution for the fiscal year that begins October 1st. This resolution passed on a party line vote with the majority in the House, the Republicans, pushing through this budget legislation. This legislation is very bad for public transit. It would amount to a 47% decrease in transit investment in the next fiscal year. The Republicans decided that they would propose a budget that would split the cost of budget reductions between domestic discretionary programs and entitlements. You might remember that last year there was a grander budget deal that split the cost of reductions between domestic discretionary programs and defense. Congress never acted on that, and this year they have proposed instead to split those costs between domestic discretionary programs and entitlements. So besides the 47% across the board reduction in transit, the House budget resolution creates two block grants that would replace Medicaid and even food stamps. The troubling thing about both of these is that they would take the existing programs and reduce them across the board somewhere in the neighborhood of about 25%. When this proposal originally surfaced 2 years ago, I could never understand the number situation because it really meant if they did that on Medicaid, they would be literally unable to fund the current number of nursing home patients that exist in all the states, and the Republican governors distinctly came to town and said that they were opposed to these changes. Yet the House has enacted them as well. In the same way, they have proposed this block grant for food stamps because, according to the hearings that were televised, there are entirely too many people on food stamps. And one of the reasons there's too many people on food stamps, according to them, was that there were coordinated efforts to provide food stamps to people who were eligible through the unemployment program, through Medicaid, and other government assistance. So in this case, the House of Representatives was very clear that it wanted separate means so that people would have to apply separately because, quote, it was too easy for them to apply for food stamp benefits. Time after time, Democrats on the committee objected to these provisions, and the food stamp one in particular, pointing out that the large number of people on food stamps had a lot to do with the nation's unemployment rate. But in the final analysis, that vote passed. It is extremely unlikely that this budget resolution will be adopted by the Senate. However, the Republican leadership said that they would instruct their committees on both appropriations and authorizing to move ahead with these numbers as they proceed to develop legislation for the next fiscal year. In light of the fact that we haven't been able to develop legislation for this fiscal year, it's hard to imagine that we would actually get a bill for next fiscal year. All in all, these issues will continue down the road that they've been on until we get to the election. And hopefully the voters will signal some forms or directions that should be taken to resolve these issues. I hope that in the week that has passed or the week ahead, if you have a chance to see your member of Congress, you might speak to them again about the important role that transit plays in all of this and the implications for us if we are unable to rely on the programs that support some of our effort, especially those in the healthcare field and those that benefit our senior citizens. There is quite a gap between the reality of what we do every day and the services that are provided and the understanding of those services in Congress. We're going to have to continue to work on that in the days and weeks ahead, and we're certainly going to have to continue to work on that after the next election. We're also getting close to something on a more positive note. We're also getting closer to Expo. And as I said last week, I would have some basic information for you for Expo today. And basically, I can report the following. We have completely surpassed our trade show this year, even though we're 6 weeks out from Expo. We've sold more trade show space and booths than we did in all of last year. A major purchase was made yesterday, and we were pleased to announce that the MV1 taxi people will be appearing in a very large facility at Expo, and we are very glad to have them with us. I want to particularly thank Charlie and Scott and Jim McClary for trying to help us make sure that these people joined us at Expo this year. In addition to that, Mr. Dixon was also very pleased to report earlier that we'd already met our hotel blocks that were required in the arrangements that we made from Baltimore. And for all of you who are baseball fans, one clue about attendance might be that we have already sold 100 tickets to the Orioles-Red Sox game, or as some people around here might refer to it, the Red Sox-Orioles game. So we think that's a good sign that attendance is going to be fine as well. If you noticed one of Mr. Dixon's emails this week, you'll also notice that we talked about some of the ideas that would be discussed at Expo this year, including new and different ways to approach some of the crises that are looming on the horizon due to these unusual political circumstances. So I'd like to end on a high note, and that high note would be I'm very pleased that we can look forward to meeting together soon to discuss these issues and others that are of our concern, to meet with our members and talk about these things and how we can look for different ways to do it. I think you're going to see some things from us in the next week or so that will be helpful. I know that we're about to relaunch our National Fuels Program to announce to our members that we still have the opportunity to help them make savings. We're going to be talking shortly about those van pools we've been discussing the last couple times we talked. So I think we're going to have some things that we can offer our members to help them through this process and through this period. But in the end, I think we have to think about the election that's ahead and rely on the good sense of the American people to continue to support what we do and what we stand for. And I'm looking forward to those exchanges, and we're looking forward to the discussions that will come both during and after the election that lies ahead. So I hope that you have a nice weekend. The weather promises to be very nice here. It's spring at last, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks again, and have a nice weekend. Bye for now.